Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the POOLBEG PHARMA PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please simply type in your question at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during today's meeting. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we would like to submit the following poll, and I'd be most grateful, and as I'm sure the company will be, for your participation. And I'd now like to hand over, if I may, to the co-founder and chairman of POOLBEG PHARMA, Cathal Friel. Good afternoon.
Mark, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody attending tonight. I'll start off the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll head over to Jeremy. My name is Cathal Friel. I'm the co-founder and chairman. This is my 4th or 5th public company I've been involved in, and take swiftly wire. I know most of you have seen the story before, so we'll try and bring in some new information. Basically, we are currently building a leading infectious disease company. A little bit more than that. The reason I'm here, we spun it out successfully from Open Orphans. The roots is very much in infectious disease, and the roots is very much in human challenge trials. And this is the future of a lot of infectious disease. We're fully funded, 25 million raised at IPO, and as you will see in this morning's RNS, we had 20.9. So we're going to early in this month in January, at the turn of the year. So we're in very good shape financially. Long-term shareholders, that's myself, I'm the largest shareholder, 7.8. Schroeder's in for 4.5. We've numerous other shareholders, but that's anybody above 3% is disclosable. That's the 2 disclosable stakes. We're targeting the booming infectious disease market. You'll hear a lot more about this in a minute, but we're capital light, rapid development, and early monetization model. And let's come into that in a few seconds. We're rapidly expanding a portfolio of assets, an experienced team, and between us, we've specialized in exits and creating shareholder value. So between myself and Jeremy and the team, we've already had exits in the tune of over $1 billion in shareholder value. So we create value by generating early human efficacy data on products that we out-license early, often, and rapidly. We'll partner with big pharma, small pharma, biotechs. Each time we partner, we look for significant upfront cash and milestones payments as they develop the product. When we acquire products, the model is very simple because it's a space we know very well, and there's more products around seeking funding, so we don't pay very much upfront. I think before I bring into the rest of the presentation, I think it's very important, maybe quote from the statement I made this morning in our RNS. I know some of you have seen and heard before, but I think it's worth repeating a few of my quotes from this morning's RNS because I think it'll take the tone for the rest of the meeting. So I said this morning's in our RNS, Cathal Friel, chairman of POOLBEG, said, as a single largest shareholder of the company, I'm going to make it my duty to ensure that the share price starts performing again. I want to make it clear that none of us, this is all hard-earned cash. I wrote a check for £500,000 sterling, my after-tax personal income within the IPO. I want to make clear that none of us are happy with the share prices. We can be smart and blame Ukraine, but could be the blame is ourselves. We're not where we should be, but we're working on that. And I said, we're not with the share price. We're not happy where it is. It has dropped since the IPO market. Market conditions remain extremely challenging. However, I want to reassure you that we're actively working on creating demonstrative shareholder value as we drive the business forward. My personal belief is that one of the biggest reasons for the pressure in the share price is the perceived overhang from the forthcoming end of the lock-up shares that are spin out from Open Orphan shareholders. Many shareholders are concerned the release of these shares may damage the share price. I personally, this is my personal view, and bear in mind I've been around a lot of public companies, I believe that this perception is wrong and that we won't see a wholesale sell-off of these shares on the 19th of April. However, we're not going to sit back. It's not in our nature to willy-nilly. However, I would like to reassure shareholders that we're looking to put in place, actively as we speak, a number and a series of actions that we believe will reduce or eliminate the potential for these shares to impact the market. In addition to these specific actions, POOLBEG is also at the advanced stage of dual listing on the over-the-counter. That's not the pink sheets. That's the same market that Vodafone and Danone are on in the USA. and with plans to complete that hopefully in the next 6, 7, 8 weeks maximum. We say we'll do that within Q2. This should provide additional liquidity to the company. And then we talk quite a lot about the plan is we would really like to get properly dual listed in NASDAQ. That's something we stated at IPO, and that's where we'd like to go. But the firm plan, OTC, will be done in Q2. Furthermore, the dividend species, we have to remind people, dividend species shares that were issued to shareholders are tax-free in the UK for UK tax purposes. So our shareholders who get them, when they come in to your accounts, they're currently held in trust. On the 19th, they'll start appearing in people's accounts. You will have no income tax to pay on them in a personal capacity. The only tax will be when you sell them. And hopefully, you won't be selling them too soon. But if people sell them, they incur the tax. But by sitting, there's no tax. And the tax they incur when they sell them is basically capital gains tax. So I think as a further reason, we're not going to have this sell up. But I said, in summary, I'm very optimistic that in the months ahead, our share price should and will start to perform. And more importantly, we will continue to progress our business as outlined at IPO. We made a lot of big, bold statements. We are getting there. We are very clear. We're a unique publicly listed company. There's only one company I keep referring to. It's the German one, Evotec, that's anywhere close to this. We're a one-stop shop for pharma and biotechs that are seeking a range of infectious disease assets. So I think I want to put that clear. That's why I'm here tonight. I feel disappointed with the share prices, but Jeremy, the team, and myself, they're just going to work hard to get it on to a better place. So let me bring back into the rest of the deck. A bit more emphasis. I think the market still doesn't understand. When you're doing something unique, it takes a while to be realized. The normal biotech model is that you raise a lot of money, you have 1 or 2 assets, you fall in love with them. The only thing I fall in love with is my family when I leave them in the morning, or usually here in the London office, I leave them on Monday and I see them on Friday. So fall in love with your kids, but biotechs fall in love with some of their products and they spend more money and more money and more money and they wait for a clinical trial. Our model is not that. What we want to do is have a whole lot of assets, pay very little. You see this, very little upfront for them. We run low-cost trials, 4 to 5 million per asset. And being honest with you, quite a few assets, we'll only have to spend $1 million to $1.5 million in order to put them in a position where we might be able to create value. We seek, in most cases, some form of early human efficacy data. And that's usually within 12 to 18 months of acquiring those assets. And then we monetize. I think what people don't understand, what do we monetize? We try and partner, out-license, get money up front from big pharma, small pharma, biotechs, and that money is reinvested into the pipeline again. So it's almost like an evergreen fund. We also can get up to one of our recent assets. We have a deluge of inquiries for the Chinese market, the Korean market, the Japanese market, and the Indian market rights. So we can actually sell off country-specific rights within months. We don't have to wait for data. So that's where we're making it very clear that our plan is not to come back to the market for any future fundraising. The 25 million we raised, the bulk of it is still there in our balance sheet, and it will be around for quite a few years. And we believe we will see money coming back in sooner than people may realize. So hopefully that's why we think it's unique. And I think there's some confusion. People think we'll burn through the cash. That's not in our plan. That's the smaller biotechs who fall in love with 1 or 2 assets. We want to have a production line of these that every time big pharma, small pharma, mid-sized pharma are looking for infectious disease products, they'll come and talk to us. And we're now getting so many people coming, showing us assets, and then we prepare them as a production line for monetization. Highlights, multiple deals. We started with one family, POOLBEG 001, and I say that is now entering a clinical trial in the months ahead, and we'll have data later this year. And the process of having so many products, we're constantly talking to big pharma and small pharma. We're not like your typical biotech who wait until the data. We will be talking often, regularly in advance of having any data. So big pharma, there'll be loads of discussions. We've added 3 additional, Jeremy can go through them, 02, 03, and the oral vaccine platform. So there's almost something for everybody that we already have here. But there's loads more coming in. Of all of these assets, we've expended maybe a couple of €100,000 up front in total. So that's the benefit of being the one-stop shop. People come and we can do great deals. Jeremy will tell us all more about 001. And I'm a firm believer that 001 asset, there's a whole load of IP extensions into other areas of indication, and we'll come to that another day, but that's a really, really exciting. The plan is we've got it in influenza. There is a bunch of other areas we can expand that into, and when we do that, we'll let you know. Artificial intelligence deal, people were getting kind of impatient. We promised this at IPO. Well, we've done our first one. There is more AI deals to come, and that's the future of the company as well. News today, we didn't talk about before, we're well down the road to the OTC listing. And this is, we know the Holy Grail, AIM's a great place to start, but you do need to be in North America. So the OTC is the first step towards a proper, hopefully dual listing on NASDAQ later this year. Expanded the Scientific Advisory Board. Jeremy will take you through more about those. And in summary here, we're very well capitalized with 20.9 on the 1st of January, and we haven't spent much since then. We try and protect our cash flow. I think we've already, all of this covered here already. I'm not going to go into it again. All on the last line, this is one of the sexiest places to be, the infectious disease. It's growing post-pandemic. The reason it's growing post-pandemic, there was no money spent on infectious disease for 30 years. Here comes the pandemic, and now you have Pfizer, GSK, AstraZeneca, all of them are looking for infectious disease. So we want to be there to supply a portfolio of them. It's going to be the world's single biggest market, potentially up to 250 billion annually by 2025. And we're now in 2023, so it's a hell of a market. Traditionally, oncology was very sexy and big. Orphan drugs with prior current interest there as well, and some of the other things. But today, this infectious disease is where the action and the interest is. At this point, I think I'll hand over to Jeremy. He will bring you through the assets, and we're going to leave loads of time at the end because there's been quite a few pre-submitted questions and questions come in. So we'll leave plenty of time at the end to answer some questions as well. So Jeremy, over to you.
Thank you, Cathal. Appreciate that. For those who don't know, my name is Jeremy Skillington. I'm the CEO of POOLBEG Pharma, a scientist by training, but I'm almost 20 years in the biotech industry, essentially on the business development side, doing deals. And as you'll see, that'll be an important component for POOLBEG moving forward. But I've worked with international, I've worked in California, I've worked in Germany, worked in Ireland, UK, so across the spectrum. So very excited to be on board with POOLBEG. I pinch myself every now and again to remind myself it's only 7 months since IPO. And all that we've accomplished, achieved up to now is quite impressive. So what I'll do, I'll go through our pipeline of assets to begin with. And as you see, what we have in blue is what we brought over, what we inherited from the demerger from Open Orphan. And what we have here in green is what we've been working on, bringing in-house through various deals and collaborations to build out the pipeline. And I think importantly, we doing what we said we'd do at IPO, and I think we're accomplishing that. So I'll run through these. I have one slide on each one of them, but just high level. POOLB 001 is a P38, is an immunomodulator for severe influenza. We're about to put this into human challenge studies later this year, and that's on track. And as Colin said, potential beyond severe influenza, but we have strong IP in that sector. We recently did a deal with the University of Warwick for an RNA-based therapeutic around respiratory virus infections for both treatment and prophylactic, so giving treatments in advance of potential outbreak. So a very unique dual modality here that, again, is very interested scientifically. POOLB 003 is a vaccine for a bacterial disease called meliodosis from University College Dublin. So that's very interesting, very unmet, very underserved needs and markets. And that's something that the team have done terrifically well to bring forward to late preclinical stage. And again, I'll talk a little bit about that. So they're kind of on the product front and more on the platform front. And as you know, platforms will feed you products. So we can see the pipeline will be expanding over the coming months and years as we tease out new products from these platforms. We have an oral vaccine delivery platform collaborating with AnaBio. As we all know from the injections many of us got in our arms over the last 2 years, there is a resistance. If you can have a vaccine with similar efficacy but get it orally, that, again, much more attractive proposition. So that's why we moved into that space. So we're covering our bets. We've said at the start, with multiple shots on goal is the route we're going to take. So different platforms, different diseases, different approaches. So on the Rsv Artificial Intelligence, a deal we signed and announced last week with 13 Biotech, again, using a very unique data set that we have access to, a license to from Open Orphan for RSV challenge studies. And a lot of data, a lot to sift through manually from a scientific standpoint, but using AI, they can analyze this data and look for new targets and candidates. And again, I'll speak about that. We're very excited about this particular approach. And again, as I say, we have potential. We have other data sets in influenza and in SARS-CoV-2, so potential to kind of go beyond RSV to look for other targets for other viral diseases. And then on the other fronts, we have vaccine discovery platform. We're able to tease out what the immune system, what parts of a virus does the immune system recognize and builds up an immune response to. So potential to build that into numerous products as well. So the key to, as Cathal has outlined, to Poolbeg is we'll push these through into early clinical testing, get that early human data that pharma so craves. They find it difficult to make internal decisions on deal making if there's not human data, because there's so many unanswered questions with regard to safety and efficacy in humans. There's a well-worn statement that you can cure cancer in mice, but it's much more difficult in humans. So they look for that human data, and that's where Poolbeg will step in. We'll get that early human data through challenge studies, phase 1, phase 1B, and then start partnering with pharma. And this is the key, that what we described here as the monetization zone is a key component to the Poolbeg strategy, is that we'll partner early and often. We will get upfront milestones and downstream royalties from pharma as these standard deal structures, but as they take on the risk and they take on the spend, but we will reap the benefits as they progress in development. So a very standard deal structure in the industry. So again, very excited about this. We do have a biomarker platform as well, and also we're expanding the pipeline. We're not resting. We're happy with the progress we've made so far, but we're still ambitious and aggressive to build the pipeline even further, and then from there build out to have additional clinical trials, clinical programs for partnering. And the reason we're doing this, and this goes back to the core of the Poolbeg strategy, and I think it's to be a partner of choice for pharma. Now, this slide, I just want to focus you on the right-hand side of the slide and focusing on the dark blue color here. So the dark blue is essentially what pharma have developed in-house. So these are the programs that pharma have developed in-house. And you see they'd had some successes in 2015, 16, 17, and then a drop off in 18, 19. And the other, let's say 60% in 2019 is programs that they bring in, programs that pharma actively go and seek and in-license and acquire or purchase, acquiring a company. So they're more reliant on external innovation for people like Poolbeg than developing internally. So they're trying to find that balance. So again, Cathal has mentioned from infectious diseases, the timing couldn't be better. Down at the bottom, there's a number of deals listed for various RSV we mentioned, 120 million upfront. So these are significant deals that companies can generate from partnerships. Merck acquiring OncoImmune for a COVID program, $425 million upfront. And then Pfizer's Valneva was actually announced 2 weeks ago, has made progress. This is a Lyme disease vaccine, 130 million upfront. So if we can do the same for POLB 001, 002, 003, you can see the revenue generation will be quite significant. And again, that's the goal at Poolbeg and how we'll generate our revenue, but also fund the new programs that we have in-house. So I'll speak now to the programs that we have. And this POLB 001, which we inherited, acquired from the demerger, and have pushed forward quite rapidly since then. Again, hitting all of our timing milestones that we stated. So this is a clinical stage potential blockbuster for severe influenza. It's targeting the immune response. So if you get severe influenza, the immune system tries to clear the virus, but sometimes it goes awry. And actually the immune response causes more damage than the virus. So that's, you're moved into severe influenza. So you're in the intensive care unit. It's your immune system is causing the damage. And this is an immune system blocker, but very selective. So we've got a clinical trial planned, a human challenge study using LPS this summer, surrogates, you could say, for influenza. And that's on track. Now, there's a number of pieces we have to put in place to achieve this. And that's formulation, manufacturing, clinical trial site selection, clinical trial design, etc. So we've achieved all that. And we have all those pieces in place and are ready to go. So we're on track to dose in June of this year. So again, hitting the timeline that we stated in July of last year. So we're on track for all of that. And these are relatively quick and efficient studies, short-term studies. So we will have the data out in the second half of 2022. And as we mentioned, we've been in discussion with pharmas up to now, explaining what we're doing, what our plans are and ambitions are. So there, when human data comes out, we'll have the deeper discussions with pharma. So potential for earlier monetization. And as Cathal said, potential territorial deals as well. So you can have more slices of the pie to get a bigger pie. But again, influenza itself, significant unmet need. It's been quiet for the last couple of years because of COVID and social distancing, etc. But the fear is that it'll come roaring back as society opens up and there's more and more interactions. From a patent standpoint, we're protected out to 2038. So again, good coverage there. So happy with that. We've got worldwide rights from the licensor that we're collaborating with. And again, the analysts see peak sales of 275 million more with these label extensions into other diseases where P38 will play a significant role from an immune standpoint. So by the numbers, influenza 1 in 8 globally get infected. 5 to 10 million of these are hospitalized. There's 500,000 deaths. And I think there'll be a demand post-COVID that we have to do a better job of preventing these deaths now that we understand the courses of disease a lot better, thanks to our studies in COVID. Our next program that we have in-house, POOLBEG, we announced this back in January. This was a license deal, an exclusive license deal with the University of Warwick, who spent 20 years working on this first-in-class broad-spectrum RNA-based immunotherapy. So again, it's a dual-action immunotherapy, so it actually fights the virus directly by interfering with replication, but it also triggers immune cells in your nose to activate the innate immunity to be ready for antiviral infection. So a dual immunotherapy, which will be planning for more greater efficacious therapy here. It's in late preclinical stage. They've done a terrific amount of work to move this forward. Identifying a manufacturing pathway, for example, clinical trials to be run, etc. So we're planning to move that forward rapidly into human testing. This is delivered intranasally, so again, avoiding the injections and triggers these innate immune cells to be in an antiviral state and blocking the virus. So a very exciting program. I say that the University of Warwick team to date have been excellent to work with. So we're looking forward to updating the markets on our progress there in the not too distant future. And as a summary, the market that we're getting into is quite significant as well. So this is broad spectrum respiratory virus, so not just one strain of viral infection, but it's 5 to 20% of the population gets the seasonal outbreaks every year. 3 million deaths in the various viral infections. And again, it's the top five cause of global deaths. And again, we were planning to get in there, get the early human efficacy data. And again, this is something ideal for pharma to take on board and complete development and move forward from a clinical standpoint. So again, very great potential for this product and excited to bring it on board. Again, to remind the attendees that this is mere 7 months from IPO, and we've achieved and accomplished a lot, identified some exciting programs to build our pipeline. As well as that, we have an antibacterial program, a Meliodosis vaccine. Now, meliodosis is found in the tropics and subtropical regions. It's a pretty severe and significant disease where there's 165,000 cases estimated annually, and they think that's underestimated, but there's a 54% fatality. So you get this bug and you're in serious trouble. And the challenge here is that there's nothing else out there for this. It's a 6-month course of severe antibiotics, and again, they don't always work. So they're looking for a vaccine and collaborating with the team at University College Dublin. They've done some, again, terrific work, bringing us to a late preclinical stage. Filed the necessary IP, have developed a manufacturing process, identified key antigens and adjuvants to stimulate the immune response. So again, a really interesting program that is worth moving forward. And again, as you know, we talk about COVID and how pharma are looking to bring products into their pipeline. This is the one that once you get early human proof of concept, then pharma will step in and take it forward there. And I think what's interesting with this in particular, there's a lot of potential for non-dilutive funding. The likes of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, they fund a lot of these tropical, subtropical diseases. So we'll be expanding beyond our IPO fundraise funds to look externally at these non-dilutive fundings as well. So great potential here to have this 100% funded by external sources. So very excited about meliodosis. The collaboration with UCD, they have 5 other vaccine programs that are earlier stage. But we have an option to these to kind of look at them, interrogate them. Let's see what progress they made. And all of them are significant unmet need for infectious diseases. So again, from a one-stop shop, we could build out our pipeline directly with the colleagues at University College Dublin. And again, the collaboration have started really well with them. I will talk a little bit about our oral vaccine that I mentioned earlier on. So our colleagues at AnaBio have developed a very interesting nano and micro encapsulation technology. They've demonstrated efficacy by giving a protein peptide that gets through the stomach. Normally things are digested through the acids and the enzymes, but they can protect these proteins and peptides, get them through the stomach and be released into the gut. And what we're planning here is to use the same platform, and using antigens and adjuvants can generate this mucosal immunity. So the mucosa in your gut is activating the immune system, activating and being ready for an infection to follow. So again, we have great potential there for this platform. And as mentioned earlier on, the platform will feed out various products and programs from this as the platform progresses. So again, looking forward to seeing how this develops over time. Again, the potential here is broad. This is a deal we only signed in January, but the potential is broad across multiple different infectious disease types. They could be GI or they could be systemic. They could be across the body. So great potential here. And again, working well with the team at AnaBio to push this along. So the benefits of oral vaccines, maybe some of these are relatively straightforward and obvious, but driving mucosal immunity. There's this discussion around, when you get an injection in your arm, you're generating systemic immunity. But if you can drive mucosal immunity at the site of infection, you're going to have a better chance of fighting that infection before it even exists and takes off. So again, great potential here for that. And from an oral vaccine delivery standpoint, much easier to distribute and administer. The challenges at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic where some of the vaccines had to be at -80 and trying to ship -80 drugs and vaccines to faraway places was a challenge. But an oral drug, is in a blister packet and off it moves. So there's a great potential here for that to meet significant global unmet needs. And then the last point, of course, is needle phobia. There is quite a significant fear of needles that people avoid vaccines because of it. But of course, this gets around us. So again, great potential for this platform to deliver multiple products. So it's one platform, but multiple products can come out of it. And I will talk about a deal again, as we talked about earlier on, we're deal makers here at Poolbeg. Very excited to announce this deal last week with colleagues at 13 Biotech based in New York. They've got a very powerful artificial intelligence platform where they can take in a lot of data. And again, I mentioned earlier on, we acquired, we've licensed a lot of data from the clinical trials that were run at hVIVO and Open Orphan. And from that, we can get the colleagues at 13 to analyze this data, large data sets, looking at how we respond to a viral infection. And it's worth pointing out, the uniqueness of this data. Because it's a challenge study, you get a healthy volunteer in who's healthy. You get their blood samples before they get the virus, then they get the virus. You can track the course of the disease as they get sick and as they recover. You can track the immune response. You can track the protein expression, the RNA expression, the gene expression. So a fantastic data set to interrogate. And so we're focusing on RSV first. As you know, RSV is affecting 50 million people globally. Almost 75,000 people affected globally. These are elderly and primarily youth. Babies under 5 is particularly challenging. And again, there's no therapies out there right now for that. So this is a very exciting program to identify new targets, identify new pathways, and then identify drugs that can hit these targets and inhibit them. So a very exciting program that, again, as a platform, can produce many different drug candidates that we can, again, partner and monetize through pharma collaborations. So very excited with this. The one key thing, I think the advantage with the team at 13 is that they can prioritize drugs that have existing phase 1 safety data. So a lot of the risks in pharma is in the preclinical stage where they're trying to identify drugs. Once you put them into humans, they may have a short half-life in humans. They may have unexpected side effects, but these are targeting drugs that have already demonstrated safety, and now we're repositioning them into a new disease and new pathways. And that's exactly what we've done with POOLBEG, where we've used this P38 inhibitor to hit severe influenza that hadn't been identified before. So we're expecting this will be, as I say, these are using supercomputers and impressive algorithms. So we should have data reading out before the end of the year, probably in Q3, about what new targets we should be pursuing and what new drugs we should be in licensing. So very exciting program here. And we won't stop there, though. We've got other ideas using AI to look at flu and to look at SARS-CoV-2 that we also have access to. So, I mean, a fantastic, exciting time for Poolbeg, in that we have all of these programs in-house to push forward, But as I say, from an AI standpoint, a lot more potential to interrogate this data set, looking for new targets and pathways. So I think I'll wrap it up there. I think that kind of covers, as I say, it's a whistle-stop tour of the activities that we've been doing over the last 7 months. We're very excited about how 2022 holds and beyond. And as I say, getting the human data early and often is what we plan to do. And of course, from there, then we'll start the partnering process and revenue generation. So again, thank you for your time. And as Cathal said, we'll leave plenty of time for questions from here.
That's great, Jeremy, Cathal. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation and for updating investors this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while Cathal and Jeremy take a few moments to review those questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your Investor Meet company dashboard. Cathal, if I may, obviously you had a number of pre-submitted questions and you've received a considerable number given the attendance on today's call. So perhaps if I may hand back to you to read out those questions and respond where appropriate.
Yeah, Mark, I'll do. I think there was 7 pre-submitted ones here. So let me have a stab at the first couple. Let's see how it's addressed to Cathal. Let's start. What is the estimated time that the funds within business will last based on the current cash burn rate? I actually hate the word cash burn because burn like to light the fire and burn in cash. And that's where we try and conserve cash and make sure it lasts a very long time. So we said at the IPO, we were never coming back to raise funds again. So I think that's how long it's last. And somebody says never is a very long time. So yeah, what we're going to do is look very much, it's like evergreen funds. As we out-license, we rotate the cash back in. And that's what Evotec and Jeremy, I keep banging on about Evotec. And I think people realize one of our directors on Open Orphans on the board of Evotec, Supervisor Elena Sullivan, she sees exactly Evotec took the market cap from 300 million 5 years ago to 7 billion. That's about 15x uplift. If we do a fraction of that, we're doing pretty well. So I think this question, how long will the cash last? We said we weren't coming back. We said we're very different to conventional. There's nothing wrong with the conventional biotechs. We just like lots of products and we don't like burning cash because I think that's a bit silly. So hopefully that's the answer. We're going to make sure the cash we have lasts a very long time because we're going to recycle and recycle. And I think people don't realize how quick we could turn around today and a number of our assets, we could raise quite a few million. We don't need it. We've got over 20 million in the bank, but if we needed a few million quickly, we could sell some of the non-core, some of our core markets, the EU, European, Britain, and North America. So we're really European and North American rights. We retain those. That's where the big bucks are. But then we've lots of other rights. People want the rights to India. We can sell them. Rights to China. We can sell them. Rights to Japan and Korea. So yeah, so that we can get those rights. We could raise a couple million literally within weeks to do that. So that's where. Second question. There's been frequent mention of a NASDAQ listing. Do you think this is possible with a company the size of Poolbeg? My plan is always get big quick. So let's see how quick we can get big. To be on NASDAQ, you're kind of crazy going unless you're 100, 150 million market cap. I believe, bear with us. Watch this space over the coming months. And I think I've said NASDAQ within a year of the IPO or 18 months. So I think NASDAQ's definitely, but no, we'd be mad. So how we're going? Step 1, dual list. That's happening imminently, 6-8 weeks away. And then later this year. So we absolutely, and there's 2 ways in NASDAQ. We go for the normal listing, or we do like our friends in Amrit, where I was a co-founder as well. They acquired a company, so you can go in by acquiring. And that's my roots, is doing deals. Organic growth's a hard, long road. And I'm 57, so I don't want to be on this hard, long road. I want to try and make money over the next 2 or 3 years. Everything should be, you're a success or failure on a 2 or 3 year window. So yeah, so NASDAQ, absolutely. We can't put an exact time frame on it, but we did say 12 or 18 months of IPO. So that gives us to later this year. Third question. We've seen the positive news of the expansion of the portfolio. So why has there been substantial selling of the shares? Presumably from your institutional backers, ? There appears to have been no reason for the 6 months lock up of open orphan shares as stakeholder 6. Can't read that properly, but yeah. So I think what you're saying here is positive news. Yeah, we've done it, and we've got 4 different asset sets now, when conventional biotechs have 1 or 2. And I've made it clear to Jeremy we want 3 or 4 more in the weeks and months ahead. So lots of assets come in. Why are they selling? That's a good question. Look, why the market? We can blame the market, everything else. I think, being honest with you, I made mistakes. Good to say a mistake, because I said, when we give free shares, the question is, do you lock them up at all? Do you lock them up for 3 months? Do you lock them up for 6 months? Do you lock them for 12 months? If I'd do it again, we would have kept probably a certain chunk of the open orphan dividend species on the open orphan balance sheet, so we could control, release them out to the market. And if we do it again, I don't think we'd lock it up more than 3 months. I think if the lockup period had expired, August, September, October, I don't think there'd been a wholesale sell-off. I'm absolutely convinced there will not be a sell-off, but we're going to have to wait till the 19th of April. But I said we're going to have a good number of very positive mitigating factors between now and the 19th of April. So who's selling? It's clear institutions, believe it or not, because we can watch those carefully, and institutions bought in for this roll of the dice. Can we get big fast? We're not going to come back to the market. So I think we've quite a few people who came in around the IPO, bought them at 10p. Shares went up to 11 or 12, 13p at one stage. People bought then. And I think what's happened then, some people didn't quite understand our model and just said, you don't need cash, dumping them. So there has been people dumping them. And then people also get into their head, shit, I bought these shares at 9 or 10p in the market, or 11p. All those free shares are coming the 14th. They'll probably could go down to 2, 3, 4, be dumped. There's absolutely no way I think they'll go anywhere there. If people get free shares, you will pay tax when you free shares are sold. So I don't think so. So I don't think it's institutions. So we can see those. We monitor the share price. So I think it's genuine people who come in. And if you look at the liquidity, there hasn't been a huge number. And liquidity is a thing we're dealing with now with the OTC. So if you do it again, we lock people for 3 months, not 9 months. And there will be more deals. So yeah, I think if we do it again, we should have locked people for 3 months and let the market. I think the 9 months gives people too long to think about it. The fourth and final question, I think, directed to me, and then we've got a good bunch of questions coming in here as well. We'll deal with them. Some brokers, and this is a really important one, I think I need to answer this one, including interactive investors, have said that restrictive locked up shares in Poolbeg arising from the open orphan spirit are not ISA eligible and will have to be moved out of ISAs. Deadline for interactive investors instruction is the 9th of March. Please, can you comment, Kyle? Well, I think what's happening here, we're going to get to the bottom of this in the next few days. I think we can fix this. The biggest confusion is the reason the ISAs can't hold them, because they're not in your ISA account. None of these shares exist at the moment. They're all held in a DAC Beechcroft nominee account. So any of you who are looking in your ISA account, or any online broker who says we can't hold them, there's a simple reason. They haven't got them. That none of these shares will be anywhere till the 19th. And then ISA is right saying you can't hold restricted shares. When we deliver the shares on the 19th to ISA, they're not restricted. They're normal shares. So quite a bit of this is, unfortunately, I know, hands up, we probably should have got to the bottom of this earlier and sooner, but we have time. So the confusion is you can't have locked up shares in the ISA. Well, we are not putting them into your ISAs locked up. They will go into your ISA when they're not locked up. So I think there's quite a bit that's just lost in translation, but let's get this confirmed in the next week or two to you. We will talk and explain to interactive investors, because yeah, naturally you can't put a restricted share in there, but the reason it's restricted is we're holding them in DSC Beechcroft nominee accounts. So hopefully I'm answering that, and that when they're not locked up, then they go into your account and they can be traded as normal shares. The issue is quite a few of the online accounts can't deal with restricted. What does it mean, restricted? And so let's get to the bottom of that. But I know the biggest confusion is there is no shares to go into these accounts. That's why you can't see them. They're in DSC Beechcroft. This is what I mean. This is the people who got the free open orphan dividend shares. So any of you who are listening tonight who bought in the market, don't worry, this confusion is the people who got the free spin-out shares. So hopefully I've answered that, but we will get to the bottom of it. We're going to talk to all the individual brokers that this problem has. But genuinely, I think where the confusion is a bit like sometimes lost in translation, whisper, whisper. ISA can't hold a share, it's restricted. they'll only go to your ISA account when they've been unrestricted. I keep emphasizing for most people, and there's a lot of online comments about it. Oh, we can't hold my shares. Where's my shares? I can't see them. Well, they're sitting in DSE nominees. They will be unrestricted and delivered to everybody's account after the 19th. So hopefully that answers that. So maybe I'll hand over, Jeremy. You've got 3 questions. Have you got them in front of you, or do you need to read them out?
I have them, Cathal. I have them.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Cathal. Yeah. So the first question for me: how are drugs like POOLB 001 valued by pharma when they make deals with companies like Poolbeg? And is it valued like a company, or is it different? So it's, again, a good question to say POOLB 001 is one of our pipeline programs. What pharma look for, and I mentioned this earlier on, is the further along the development pathway you are, the greater value pharma sees for this. You're de-risking a program. So what Poolbeg will do is bring this forward, de-risk it, get human data. And there's actually a jump, the de-risk level and the value inflection point is quite significant. So they treat it as an individual program. And typically deals of this manner for pharma is, we mentioned earlier on, you get a substantial upfront fee. That's kind of a reward, you could say, for the work you've done thus far at a premium. But it also, they get access to the data, the product, the intellectual property. And then what pharma does is take it forward from there. I think a really good example, fresh in my mind, is the last company I worked with, Inflazome, where we had phase 1 data in healthy volunteers, and we had data from 1 patient that showed that the drug was effective in 1 patient, so nothing statistical. But that was enough for Roche to acquire the company because they wanted to design their own phase 2 trials, and phase 2 looks at efficacy and safety, and then progress it into phase 3 trials. So they could decide which indication, which disease they go into. So pharma like that control. So you've done the early heavy lifting to de-risk the program, and then they take it forward. They'll move it into the clinic. And what happens to Poolbeg then is every time pharma goes into a phase 2 trial, we get paid. So they take on the risk, they take on the burden of the cash burn, but we get paid as they move forward. And of course, bringing it to the market, then we get a royalty from that as well. So we get a percentage of their sales. So of course, those numbers need to be negotiated. But I think the beauty of POOLB 001, and again, similar to Inflazome, it has the potential to go into multiple diseases. So it's not just one disease, a one-trick pony for one disease. It has the potential to go broad. So every time they go into a different disease, we could potentially get a milestone for that. So that's the way pharma like to work. So as an individual program, they'll partner with. And, it hasn't escaped our attention that, if they like one program, they look at another program, look at another one and like all 3, they could kind of step in and just take the lot. And that's where we have good dialogues and discussions with pharma around those potentials. But they'll likely start with one program and potentially go broader, which I think is a nice segue into the next question, which is probably a bit trickier. Can you give any expected value from your 5 different vaccine candidates? So just to be clear on this, the Meliovac that we have an option for University College Dublin, they're finishing up some toxicology studies here, which would be the trigger for a license. So again, everything seems to be pointing in the right direction that will happen. But Professor McLean, who's worked on the Meliovac for many years and has done a terrific job, is also working on other bacterial antigens. So her approach is to look at which parts of the bacteria stick to the human, stick to the lung, for example. And if we can use them as vaccines, then the immune system will spot them. So she's got programs, and I won't list them all out, but things in Klebsiella pneumonia and things like Pseudomonas aeruginosa. These are kind of things like, say, cystic fibrosis sufferers will suffer from. So she's got, now these are earlier. Some of them she's just identified the antigens. Some of them there's preclinical data, and some of them are much more further along. There's a really interesting antigen for E. coli that causes some issues. So it's hard to put a value because of their stage of development. But I think what's important for Poolbeg is that we work closely with Professor McLean and watch the progress. And then when we see the data that we like, we can step in and add it to our pipeline. So I think we're quite fortunate. So an actual value is difficult, but as I say, from a scientific standpoint and a preclinical standpoint, we'll be monitoring those very closely and seeing what's worth bringing in or not. So again, these are how collaborations work and work well. And the third question for me, you mentioned we can expect results in 12 to 18 months per vaccine, I guess per therapeutic, depending. How far through the POOLB 001 process are we? And do the 12 to 18 months start after the trial in June, or did the clock start last year? Okay, that comes in various stages. But the 12 to 18 months, just to explain, is how long it takes to get that human data. So we've talked about POOLB 001. They said we're starting the human challenge studies in June of this year. and the data will be reading out 3 to 4 to 5 months after that. As I say, these are kind of a lot of analysis goes through, a lot of data goes through, a lot of reports and analysis and statistics, etc., etc. So once we have that in hand, that's where we go and talk to pharma about POOL001. Here we have a drug we believe has potential to play a significant role in severe influenza and beyond. So that's the kind of time frame. It's like having that human data. And we did talk about, the Meliovac, for example, and the University of Warwick asset. They're late preclinical, so there's some manufacturing to do there. But as soon as you have that human data, so that's where the 12 to 18 months comes in, depending on the program. As soon as you have that human data, that's where you're having the deeper discussions with pharma. As Cathal mentioned earlier on, you've already had the pre-discussions. You've teed them up of kind of what you're doing, what your strategy is, what your trial design looks like, and what's the data you're expecting. And then they're ready to go as soon as the data comes out. So it's a continuum, let's say, and each program is slightly different. So they'll be a little bit staggered, but all of the discussions, as I say, will once we have that human data, that's where we get into the deeper dive with our pharma discussions. So there are my 3 questions. So we can take a look at what's on what's been sent in out tonight.
Jeremy, thanks. What I might do is we can say them. Unfortunately, I don't think the public can say them, but we'll rattle through some of these inbound questions. We'll tic-tac between myself and Jeremy. First one's from Ian J. Ian J said, when is the first sustained commercial income expected? Look, I think the clear answer to that, and maybe the confusion is Jeremy said we'll start the first trial later this year. We're starting our first 001 trial in June. The trial will last 3 or 4 months. We're going to have data later this year. So the trial will start pretty darn soon. And as soon as we have that trial data, that's when we should be negotiating for some commercial income. Mm-hmm. And separately, instead, if we really need commercial income anytime in the next weeks or months, we can turn around and offload, sell for fairly serious cash, country by country. The trick you learn when you're around this industry for quite a while is lots of small biotechs just sell them off non-core rights to one company. You sell a non-core rights to each country individual. You sell them to India for a product. You sell them to China, Korea, Japan. You can even sell off the rights specific to Brazil. And then you go through the Middle East, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi, all different countries, cash each time. So to answer the question, first commercial revenue, we can do it right away. We've got tons of cash at the moment, but the beauty of it, we say we are a self-sustaining business model. Mm-hmm. Second question, Mark P. Which Schroeder funds hold POBEL? To be honest, I'm not sure. We can find that out from Schroeder's, but look, it's in the Schroeder's fund. There was a little bit of confusion at the early doors that Schroeder's took a 4.5% stake. Somebody went on holidays, and when the fund manager went, accidentally bought some extra, and we popped through 5%. And it went back down again to 4.5%. They got rid of them. So people were panicking when they saw Schroeder's up. Schroeder's bought this 4.5% stake, and it hasn't moved a single iota. If it moves down, Schroeder's herself will have to report it. Mm-hmm. Next one, I think Jeremy, one for you, Robin D. When do you expect? That's a good one.
Sign the definitive. Again, it's a really good question. I mentioned in the presentation. Sorry, the question is when do you expect to sign the definitive licensing deal with UCD from Meliovac? And how many of the 5 earlier stage products from the same group do you think we may license? I may have answered that already, but I said we're waiting on an important tox study to read out. The signs are positive, but obviously from our diligence standpoint, we want to have great comfort that there is nothing untoward. And I think that if that comes back clean, then we'll discuss that. And we're doing pre-discussion talks on that already, with the UCD colleagues. As for the number of other programs, again, it all is data dependent and timing dependent. They're all at different stages. So if the data comes back good and positive from the preclinical studies, then it's a no-brainer to license and push them forward. So that's on the Meliovac.
Next question, I think, is an interesting one. Ken Taro one. What is the moat Poolbeg has? What is to stop a bigger company with deeper pockets to come in and provide the same service? Yeah, good question. And again, this where it's going to take us a little while for people to understand our model. We don't provide a service. We acquire IP. We acquire the rights. Infectious disease was a Cinderella industry for a long time. Big pharma didn't want to do it. So we're hoovering up rights. Say we've been around now 6 months and we've spent a couple of $100,000 up front on one of the products. But we bring them through. We have our experts. We're good at out-license. We're good at dealing with pharma. And it's not really a service. So we take a big pharma, and I'm not sure big pharma are good wheeler dealers at putting these deals together. they tend to take years where we might take weeks or months. So the moat is we move fast, we're acquiring a lot of rights, and we're simultaneously out licensing, generating some data. So I think that's, hopefully you understand, the moat is we're moving fast and there's nobody else doing what we're doing. It's actually ironic, but we're not facing competition. So hopefully that one.
I think, Colin, if I could add to that as well, that's well answered. But I think part of the challenge is like pharma are always busy doing what they're doing, and that was my point earlier on about that graph, is that they look externally. They look for pharma or small pharma biotech companies to do that early de-risking, so that then they can bring it into their pipeline and fund it. So we're doing the earlier stage de-risking of the programs for pharma. So they could do it, but their bandwidth is full with all of the other programs they're running. So again, everything is data driven from a pharma standpoint. So that's what we plan to generate.
Jeremy, probably next one, Spark EJ. That's one for you, maybe.
The non-dilutive grant fund. When will Poolbeg receive the first non-dilutive grant monies? What approximate amounts are we looking at, and what are the sources? Thank you too. Thank you for the question. Yeah, we've already submitted a grant. Now, I won't talk about the sizes of them, but we've submitted one here in Ireland. We have a meeting actually tomorrow with a grant funding organization that we're working closely with. We're looking where we can look at the US, for the likes of BARDA and DARPA, who fund a lot of these infectious disease areas. The meliodosis in particular is high on their priority list because they see this as a potential for biological warfare. I talk about the tropical, subtropical, where people accidentally encounter meliodosis and then suffer from it. But because it's such a robust bacteria, there's concerns, the threat for a bioweapon. So there's funding for that, and that could be significant. If you look at companies that were funded for COVID, for example, that was in the tens of millions that they were getting funding to kind of move these things forward rapidly. So we say we're in flu and meliodosis, for example, and other viral diseases. There's a lot of non-dilutive funding out there we can get to actually fund our clinical trials. So we say we have one submitted, so we're waiting to hear back on that. But we're meeting with our grant funding team tomorrow to push forward on other options and other opportunities.
I'd probably answer this almost as a plant. David M. How many people do Poolbeg employ? David, great question. There's a difference. Very few. I think if facts are right, Jeremy's probably the only full-time employee we have. Is that right? I think. Yeah.
Maybe we're all working 120%, Carl.
Yeah, but no, look, the reality, what we're doing, this is how biotech should be. Lots of virtual. Most of the rest of us have 2 jobs. So we're only billing Poolbeg half our salary, which is great. I'm in the Open Orphan office here in London. We've got Poolbeg signs in the office as well. So we can avail if we can get with one of the scientists that's most sought after scientist, a statistician, biostatistician here in Open Orphan. He's been with us for 25 years in London. We get him for half a day a week or one day if we need him. So yeah, very few full-time staff, half a dozen or so part-timers. So that's why the cash burn will remain low. And we reach out and get more as we need them. So that's the way a company that should be run. We don't intend to hire a big army of people. Yep. It doesn't take rocket science. We've then a part-time lawyer, and we've actually we have a full-time finance director. Yep. And CFO, because we want to watch that money carefully for doing deals. So yeah, not a whole host of people. So
I think importantly again, Carl, is we're again, I hark back to Inflazone, where we had 15 people, and again acquired for 380 million by Roche. But we outsourced a lot of our required work, and there are a lot of companies out there, contract companies that will do the manufacturing, that will do the regulatory work, that will do the clinical trials. You don't need to recruit 10, 20, 30 people to do these studies. There are people out there you need them for 3 or 6 or 9 months on a consulting basis. So we keep the FTE costs low and have the external experts then, but push the programs forward. Very standard is kind of semi-virtual model in the biotech industry.
Jeremy, I think the next one from Mark Peace for you, because I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. Why use stats guys in the US? Maybe I'm misspoke or maybe is misinterpreted. I'm not too sure. I mean, the clinical trial maybe that we're running is based in the Netherlands. Again, these people have expertise in the trial type that we're trying to run. Some stats kind of come in from there. Again, I hope I'm not misinterpreting the question, but we do. There's a lot of work goes on in the UK. But wherever the expertise is, we can tap into it there. So apologies, Mark, if that doesn't directly answer the question, but I'm not sure what it's pointing to, but as I say, it's a global industry. You kind of, yes, you stay local, but if there's expertise elsewhere, you can kind of reach out and access that as well.
Jeremy, next one for you as well.
Next one for the Meliovac, again, it's a good question, and a terrific amount of work has been done. There's been a paper published last month and one 2 years ago. So that's all ready to go. We're talking about GMP manufacturing right now. So there is kind of non-GMP manufacturing already done. So there's a manufacturing process in place, and there's GMP manufacturing discussions ongoing right now. So they're at that stage where, obviously, just to explain, GMP manufacturing needs to be done as a higher level, a higher grade of manufacturing before you put it into humans. So that has to be done. And that's usually like a 6 or 9 month process. So we're looking at 2023 for a phase 1 study there for the Meliovac as it stands right now. So again, a terrific amount of work done. So we'll get those discussions up and running.
And then maybe I might take this one almost like a plant. Ryan M. Any possibility of a clinical trial for a combination therapy with POOLBEG 001 and Immutex Flu V? Well, dear God, if you talk about a biotech company that's taken for, I don't know, use the swear word, ever to do anything, that's Immutex. We've unfortunately a 49% stake. We don't control the damn thing. Other group have 51%. We've done our best. It's breaking my heart. It's damaging the share price in open market. I promised to offload this non-core asset, and oh boy, is it hard to shift. So I'm struggling to get a buyer while we only have 49%, because the 51% kind of want to. Not sure why. I think they want to be sitting in something. But so Immutex, Ryan, to answer your question, is there a possibility of a clinical trial combined 001 Immutex? No, absolutely not. That's because okay, just God help us, if they've been around 10 years, they had some of the most sexy, exciting flu vaccines, mosquito saliva vaccine. And it doesn't appear to be happening. So I think if I'm not able to shift it, there's almost a saying, shifting like a piece of something off a shovel. I don't think Jeremy would really want to drag it through. Anyway, so all I'm saying is no, I don't think.
I don't see it either. Yeah, I mean, two different mechanisms of action. I can see the logic, but running combination clinical trials where neither drug has been approved, that's almost impossible. But Cathal, I'm conscious of time here. Maybe we'll finish up on this last one. Are Paul be able to develop several assets at a time, or are they concentrating on one at a time at the moment? We can do several programs at a time. Again, they're a little bit staggered. While some are heading towards the clinic, others are kind of wrapping up manufacturing of these kind of things. So we have the potential. We have the team, as I say, we use a network of external consultants as well to help these moving along. So I think one of the expertises of the POOLBEG team is in project management and managing that these things are moving forward in parallel, so one doesn't fall down the other. So that's the question for that. As I say, we have the bandwidth right now to kind of build out the pipeline and let it run. Mark P, thank you for that. Sorry, let's wrap it up. Mark just sent it in. The 13 Biotech is a US company with a Bayesian stats guy at the top. We have lots of them here. All right, fair point. We've talked to 13 about our data sets. They do have a unique approach. Each of these AI, artificial intelligence companies, are slightly different. What we liked about the New York guys was that not only will they identify targets from the data set that we have, but they, different to a lot of companies, go out and actually file the drugs that hit those targets, and drugs that have been through the clinic, and drugs that have demonstrated to be safe and well tolerated. So they had a little bit of extra cherry on top, but they're really good guys to work with. But point taken, Simon, again, appreciate the explanation there, and apologies for not fully understanding it previously.
Jeremy Cahill, I might just jump in. Perfect timing as we come up to the hour, and you have addressed pretty much most of the questions that have come through from investors. So thank you to everyone that's taken the time to submit questions this evening. Cahill, I know investor feedback, and Jeremy, investor feedback is important to the company, and I will shortly redirect investors to provide you with their thoughts and expectations. But perhaps before doing so, if I may, just ask for a few closing comments just to wrap up with.
Over to you, Jeremy.
Yeah, listen, I remind the listeners, the investors, it's been 7 months. We've hit the goals that we've set out to hit. And I think we've got a very bright future ahead of us. We've now building momentum. That was one of the subheadings, let's say, of our RNS this morning, talking about our updates or financial statements. but there's a lot of good times ahead. Cathal is right. We're disappointed with where the stock price is, but I think that we've demonstrated we have the capabilities, we have the team behind to execute. And I think we will see things turn around. I think it's been a challenging time for most investors in the first 2 months of the year. But as I say, we're hoping to see a turnaround right now. And, we have a lot of news flow coming as well as the programs progress, but a lot of deals to be done as well. So I think it's a terrific time to be investing in infectious diseases in particular, and in Poolbeg specifically.
That's great. Jeremy, Cahill, once again, thank you so much for your time this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, could I please ask you not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can really better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of POOLBEG Pharma PLC, we'd like to thank you very much for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session, and good evening to you all. Thank you for your time.